Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Board of Trustees to order. Today is September 18th, 2023. Madam Secretary, would you call roll for us?
Yes, sir. Ms. Luna Chavez?
Present.
Mr. Overfill?
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Here.
Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Mr. Galindo? Present. Ms. Haynes?
Here.
And myself. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members and that this meeting was duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, we'll have opening ceremonies, first with a moment of silence for personal reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Again, welcome everyone. We do have some recognitions today, and we'll have Mr. Rios. We have the Del Rio High School Mariachi.
Good evening, President Mesa, and Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This evening, our feature fine arts program will be our Mariachi de Medianoche from Del Rio High School. So if I could have the mariachi enter the stage. And this evening, they're going to be performing one song, which is going to be featuring Marissa Westlake. And it's entitled Crucifijo de Piedra. So, Del Rio High School, you may take the stage.
Cuando lo estaba queriendo, cuando lo estaba sintiendo, todito mío lo vi partir. Me juró que regresaba, pero todo era mentira, porque ya su alma no era de mí. En la noche silenciosa nos miramos frente a frente. Sin hablar, cuando me dijo de pronto que olvidara su cariño, que no me quería engañar. Fue bajo del crucifijo de la torre de una iglesia cuando la luna nos alumbró. Yo lo estreché entre mis brazos con ganas de tenerlo, pero el orgullo me lo impidió. Ya sola frente a la iglesia y llorando aliviar mi tristeza. El crucifijo de piedra. También se puso a llorar.
And well, that's just one song of the many songs. We try to feature all of our students. I call it karaoke, and so that everybody has an opportunity to sing. And sometimes we discover some talent in a lot of these kids that I wouldn't sometimes expect for them to sing as well. And so I think Marissa was one of those, and she said, "I'd like to sing." I said, "Well, let's try it out." And so she did a great job, as well as the rest of the students. So we appreciate all the support that we get from our administration. Again, we hope you enjoyed the music of our Del Rio High School Mariachi de Medianoche. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, they are awesome. It's just a great group, and we really enjoy, again, the presentations that are done here on the board. They're outstanding, and they represent us so well when they do compete and they perform. So thank you again, Mr. Rios. I'm going to ask the board, we do have some reports if we could move on up. We have people from out of town. We have Mr. Coldaway here. And if that's okay, we would like to move one of the reports. We don't have any citizens to be heard, so we'll move into reports, and that will be item 8E, Health Plan Update. Ade Garcia.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. With us today, we have Mr. Coldaway, who is going to provide an update of our health plan, and joining him is Lexi Young. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us. I will introduce Lexi Young, who makes everything work for us. She handles all the day-to-day things for your team, and she does a great job for us and for you, so we welcome her. I did want to give you just a very quick update tonight about where we are kind of year to date, and one thing we're contemplating and planning for 2024. This graph you've seen before is just a per employee per month cost graph, and you see it peaks out at the end of 2021, and that was when we made some dramatic changes to your plan. So the plan year for 2022 was a pretty significant drop in cost. At the same time, your employees experienced much lower out-of-pocket costs because of the changes that were made. We've seen a continued drop so far in 2023, although not as great, but at least it is heading in the right direction and not continually increasing. So this is just the numbers that go along with that graph. So 2022, we saw a 14% overall decrease from the year before. So far this year, we've seen a 2% decrease from that number. So financially, we're pleased with how the plan is operating. We're more pleased with what we believe are the services being rendered to your employees and their families. There are some significant large claims, and I only bring this up this evening to highlight something I'm going to talk about in just a moment. So these are, each line item of these represents one human being that's experienced some significant health problems and consequently very expensive costs. Many of these claims on this list are very directly related to diabetes, right? And we know that the diabetes as a disease is endemic in South Texas. It is worse here than other parts of the country. And as we started analyzing those claimants and the sickest people and realized that was the underlying cause, we started looking for solutions to help. And so through a very fortunate series of events, I got introduced to Dr. Artie Thanguru. And Dr. Artie is an endocrinologist, which is the type of doctor that directly serves and helps diabetic patients. And she is an amazing person. She's a really wonderful doctor, but more importantly, she changed her practice model several years ago before I met her and got out of the insurance space. She did not take insurance. She took care of patients who paid her directly. And she did that in order to provide the time that was necessary to actually impact their health and help them. And to hear her stories about in her prior insurance world practice where she would have 5 to 7 minutes with a very, very sick patient, and that patient could not see her again for 4 to 6 months, she realized she wasn't helping those patients very much, so she opted out of that. We access her and get all the services she delivers, so your members have access to Dr. Thanguru and her team, including another endocrinologist, Dr. O'Leary, at no cost to them. So your employees and their family members who have diabetes, when they are seen by Dr. Thanguru, it does not cost them anything. So her appointments are 1 hour long with her patients. And that's what it takes to actually dive in to what's going on in their world to help them overcome this very, very serious disease. So we introduced that in June, and so I've had several conversations with her about your specific member. She's seen 26 folks so far that are part of your either employee or a dependent. And without going through all this detail, which you guys can read, the bottom line is people are dramatically reducing their A1C levels, which is critical to their health. People are losing weight, and they are enjoying the process. So we got several quotes here from your teammates, and we're very, very pleased with how this is going. This is a long-term play in terms of cost because diabetes evolves over time, and it evolves to heart attacks, kidney failure, blindness, amputations, all the things you all are familiar with. And so more importantly than cost, she is helping people to improve their health in some dramatic ways. So we are very, very excited about that. And over time, that does result in lower cost. If we avoid one $200,000 claim that was a result of a heart attack because of diabetes, this will be money very, very well spent. So we're very pleased with how that's going. No one is forced to see her. They can see any physician they want, but they will receive an amazing service and outcome through her, and it does not cost them anything to do so. So very pleased with how this is going so far. The only disappointment I have is that we don't have more, because there are probably 150 to 170 folks that we know of that have diabetes, and so far we're seeing 26. And when we had a conversation with your insurance committee this afternoon, probably 60% were unaware of this, even though everyone has received multiple emails and we've done some other marketing. So we're going to have to do better on our end to make folks aware of this program, and we will do that over this fall and throughout the year. So very pleased with how that program is going. So thinking about 2024, and I've introduced this to Dr. Rios and Ms. Garcia and the team, and to boil this down, what this RX Compass program is an attempt to purchase the most expensive medications in better ways. And there are multiple pathways that we can do that with, but it does result in some pretty significant savings to the district. It is not about not covering certain drugs. It's not about restricting access. It is simply about purchasing them at lower cost or getting them for free, as the case may be. So there's multiple pathways that our current pharmacy benefit manager who would manage this program can go. So I wanted to explain to you what these mean. So patient assistance programs are programs set up by the manufacturer of the drugs, and quite often we can go through those programs and acquire those drugs for free. So the plan doesn't pay for them, the member doesn't pay for them. There are certain income requirements which are relatively high. Most of your employees would qualify. So that would be the first pathway. If we could go that direction, then we may acquire a $20,000 drug at no cost to the district or the member. So that would be one pathway. We're already doing manufacturers' coupons where the pharmacy benefit manager is maximizing the value of those drug coupons you see advertised on television. So that's already happening. We're seeing good savings from that. So that'll continue. Telesaver RX is less used, but is possible at times. And to give you a very brief explanation, 340B programs is a federal program that allows smaller rural hospitals to acquire these medications for pennies on the dollar. They then turn around and sell them at markup. And the whole point of this was to help those smaller rural hospitals increase some revenue when they're struggling. But even when they mark them up, it's not as much as we might have paid elsewhere. So that is a different pathway. And then a very big one is international mail. And this is simply where those drugs are sourced through Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, tier 1 countries at typically about half the price that we pay for them here in the United States. So those are the four main components of the program, and it's all managed through our pharmacy benefit manager, with a concierge team. These are drugs, these are the most expensive drugs, and these are folks that are already interacting with them to acquire these drugs. These are not drugs you're going to walk down to H-E-B and purchase. They come from a specialty pharmacy, or they're requiring pre-authorization. So there's already processes in place, but this would just take it to a different level. Based on the last 6 months of data, this would impact about 150 people. So it's not widespread, but about 150 people that we know of right now would be impacted. And bottom line, over 12 months, net of everything, we would expect the district to save about $508,000. So we think that is significant enough to move forward with the program. It is not without a little work on the members. They may have to provide income data, tax return data, to see if they qualify for these income-based programs. They do have to cooperate with the pharmacy benefit manager to move this forward, but it's not onerous what they're being asked to do in light of a fairly significant potential savings. So that's the RX Compass program. I would suggest we move forward with it, because it is pretty significant in terms of the savings, and we do see prescription drugs, no matter what we do, continue to escalate. So this is a pathway to help control that. So that's what I had for you this evening. Open to any questions from Dr. Rios or the board.
I'll turn it over to board members if they have any questions. I have a couple of them, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you could. On the diabetic patients that are seeing doctor, do they have a place for privacy? I know it's telemedicine.
It is. So I don't know how they're doing that here in the district, whether they're doing that from their home or how they're doing that. They would obviously need a place that is private to conduct those visits, but I'm not sure how they're doing it.
And the question arises from the fact that, you know, a lot of students didn't have access to internet, and so I'm sure the parents have a problem with that as well. But I hope that we do have a place here that they can come and be available. There's seemingly, yes, they do.
Okay.
And I hope we can get more, because I think this is a wonderful idea. A lot of times they don't travel because, again, consequences, whether it's monetary or vehicle-wise, but this certainly would make a big difference to a lot more patients.
Yes, sir.
And then the other thing is, if we do have international mail, how sure are we that we're getting 100% of the medication itself? Because a lot of times...
Yes, sir. That's a good question. We're very confident in that because it is literally the exact same drug in the exact same packaging. It is exactly the same thing. I don't think there's any concerns about that, because it is coming from those 5 countries that I mentioned: the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. So I think we're pretty safe on that. One point to your comment, Mr. Mesa, that it is telemedicine with Dr. Thengudu, and I wanted to give you a brief history of how that happened. So, you know, like most doctors, she was seeing people in clinic until COVID and was unable to do so, and started seeing patients virtually at that point, and did surveys. The patients liked it better. They don't have to travel, particularly from Del Rio. You would have to go to San Antonio, so they don't have to travel. They don't have to take half day off. It's an hour of your time. And she said the patients actually preferred it, and that also is what allows it to work well for you here in Del Rio, because nobody's having to drive anywhere. So it's working very, very well.
Absolutely, yeah. I read here that she's very fluent in Spanish, so that's another wonderful addition to that.
You would be surprised if you met her. She is Indian by heritage, and she looks like a very small, little petite Indian woman who happens to speak fluent Spanish. So a little surprising, but she does. So.
Well, I wanted to tell you that we're extremely proud as a board to offer 100% insurance for our employees, and anything that will, again, will reduce the cost for us to be able to keep doing that year after year will make a big difference. And I think this is a step in the right direction.
Yes,
or
sir.
Several steps in the right direction. Anyone else want to add anything? Thank you so much. I thank you
sir.
again for your report. And then safe travels. Okay, we'll continue with reports. We'll start with the first one that we had originally, and this is item 8A, Facilities and Construction Update. Hector Chapa.
Good evening, Board President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Tonight's presentation, it only includes the park status for Ceniza Hills Elementary, as well as the status of the electrical bus deployment. Currently, the fields are basically done, except they need final cleaning because of debris and materials that have been stockpiled on it. The walking trail, the curve, the base, and the asphalt prime material has already been placed, as well as approximately 80% of the final surface. The contractor has encountered some issues with material delivery from the only provider, Vulcan. The lighting is scheduled to be completed towards the end of the month, and the landscaping should be completed towards the end of October. The back side of the, or north side of the building, adjacent to the building, all the landscaping is completed. So the only thing that's pending would be around the track and within the track area, the fields. The landscaper has already started the irrigation system for that area. And playground is scheduled to be, equipment is scheduled to come in mid-November. The bus, for the bus, school bus deployment, the funds were dispersed beginning of mid-August. And now we're looking at starting the infrastructure work beginning of October. Later on in the board, during the meeting, there's going to be a couple of items that are purchase orders for your approval. Any questions?
I do have one. Have you had any issues with the traffic? It seems to be flowing pretty good, but I don't know the ins and outs in the morning or afternoon. Everything seems to be okay?
Everything seems to be okay. From what I understand, traffic is taken care of 20, 30 minutes after dismissal. And at arrival, same scenario within 30 minutes.
Wonderful. There was a big scare with residents, in the area that traffic was going to be just zooming by, where it's a kind of quiet residential area, but they seem to be going through Agarita, as I mentioned before, so they're not going through, the regular or residency and creating any noise or any heavy traffic at all. It seems to be flowing everything on Agarita and Enchanted Way. All right, anyone else?
Mr. Mesa, I
Yes.
just want to say, due to that, I live in the area, and it's really quiet. I mean, I'm like, do we really have a school out here? Traffic is no problem, and I live very near there. So I think it's going pretty smooth as far as the traffic.
Yes, I think everybody was expecting, just
Yes.
everyone being dropped off, but it seems to be working exactly how we wanted
Yeah.
to be working. So they're taking Agarita, which is a wonderful thing. We thank you. Anyone else? Then we'll continue with the rest, transportation, the maintenance.
Yes, sir. The work orders for maintenance, the 0 to 50 that had 609 submitted and closed were 563 for a percentage of 92.4. The 16 to 30, they received 133 work orders. Closed was 116 for 87.2% closure rate. 31 to 60 days is 113. They closed 92 for 81.4. And 61 to 90 was 65 were submitted, 60 were closed for a 92.3 percentage. Technology, 0 to 15 days, they received 3,017 work orders. 2,887 were closed for a 95.7 rate. 60 to 30 days, they received 279, 250 were closed for 89.6 rate. 31 to 60, they received 171 and closed 123 for a rate of 71.9. 61 through 90 days, they received 73 and closed 26 for 35.6%. And finally, transportation, 0 to 15 days, they received 144, closed 123 for 85.4. 60 to 30 days, they received 30, closed 27 for a rate of 90%. 31 to 60 days, they received 9 and closed 7 for 77.8. And 61 through 90 days, they received 2 and closed 1, 50%.
Questions from board members? Sir, on the technology, is everything up and running now at Ceniza Hills?
As far as I know, yes, sir. Mr. Salinas is here in case to verify. Is that correct?
So everything is up and running now? Okay. No questions, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next report that we have is item 8B, Texas Reading Academies, Michelle Gonzalez.
Okay, good evening. Board President Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. My name is Michelle Gonzalez, and I am the Texas Reading Academy's cohort leader for San Felipe Del Rio CISD. I am honored to be here this evening to present to you updates on the Texas Reading Academies for the 2023-2024 school year. I'll begin a little bit with our journey. It all started in the summer of 2019. This was our journey at the state level. San Felipe Del Rio was one of only 30 recipients in the entire state of Texas to receive the Reading Excellence Academies Development Grant, or READ grant. And it's very important to note that San Felipe Del Rio was only one of only 7 districts in the entire state. The rest were regions. So it began in the summer of 2019 at the state level. This was the very first group of teachers to go through a week-long Texas Reading Academies training. And I feel very blessed to be part of the district that allowed me to participate in this capacity at Kelly Lane Middle School in Pflugerville. So this was the first academy that I was able to present at the time in June of 2019. So our journey continued in the summer of July of 2019. So here's where we welcomed 60 of our very own San Felipe Del Rio, who arrived at Karen Wagner High School in San Antonio. Each participant had their very own hotel room at the Riverwalk. We spent full days of training from very morning to evening, and we worked the entire week. So we successfully completed that week of training. The teachers gave up a week of their summer. So our journey at the state level continued, and by this group that you see right here, we had 1,800 teachers trained in the summer of 2019 in the cities of Round Rock and Pflugerville, Grand Prairie, Lubbock, and San Antonio. Again, I feel fortunate to have worked alongside the TEA, wearing green tags and blue tags that you see cohort leaders in those pictures. So our journey continued. We came back to our district and continued with the trainings for this cohort 1 that ran from July of 2019 to July of 2020. We had a total of 57 participants ranging from kindergarten through 5th grade teachers. And our journey continued with cohort 2, July 2020 to July 2021. And as you can tell, and you can guess, this was the pandemic year. So we did the entire Reading Academies online. And so we met 100% of all requirements online. Visits, classroom visits, everything was done online. We had 58 participants of kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers. Cohort 3 ran from July 2021 to July 2022 with 60 participants from kindergarten through 3rd grade teachers, principals, dyslexia therapists, and special education teachers. We were able to meet completely in person except for 1 month. In January, we met online. We had to meet online because of numbers again at the time, but we were able to again complete 100% of all requirements of the Reading Academies. So this takes us to most recently, this past school year, from July 2022 to July 2023, we had 44 participants ranging from kindergarten through 5th grade teachers, principals, assistant principals, bilingual strategists, dyslexia therapists, and special education teachers, again, with 100% completion of all requirements. And now a little about the Texas Reading Academies. These are the requirements that were established by the 86th Texas Legislature with the passing of House Bill 3 in 2019. So the Science of Teaching Reading Certification exam, that demonstrates a teacher's beginning proficiency in the science of teaching reading. Now the Reading Academies, as we mentioned, is a 12-month program, and it continues learning and building that same science of teaching reading, but in the school context. So together, these programs provide teachers with the foundational knowledge to teach reading and writing and to effectively apply that knowledge in the classroom setting. So once a teacher passes the STR exam and they're hired by a local education agency, they are also required to take the Texas Reading Academies. Now, this requirement calls for all kindergarten through third grade teachers and principals to complete the Reading Academies. It also includes special education teachers, literacy specialists, and departmentalized teachers. LEAs can exempt the following teachers who are certified in art, health education, physical education, speech communication, theater arts, or theater. This is the methodology that we use for success in the Reading Academies. It's done through learning, practicing, implementing, and reflecting. So when we meet for our trainings, I present the material that comes from TEA at our 10 trainings that we have throughout the year, and so the participants learn all of the information. We then take it into practice in the actual classroom setting, and then part of my position is also to implement it, and I provide real-time coaching. So I do that alongside with the teachers, with co-teaching, or take over, kind of work together with the lesson if they have questions, and that's how we connect the Reading Academy's content to real-life situations in the classroom. And through that, we reflect on those situations, and we talk about it. So we set up a visit. I visit them in their classroom, and then we set up a debrief. It usually happens the same day or the next day, and we debrief and talk about what we talked about during that lesson. And just please keep in mind that all content comes directly from TEA, and in order to see its successes, we must adhere to fidelity of delivery and fidelity of implementation. What we have in Del Rio is a comprehensive model. So it consists of 12 modules that are presented in Canvas, which is a learning management system. We have the following 12 modules that we cover throughout the year during our 10 trainings. And it is important to note that these modules are completed live during those training days with extra coaching that they have to support the science of teaching reading. As I mentioned, we have 10 professional development days. They consist of 5 two-day trainings throughout the year. And this is how our trainings run. We run from September through April with 2-day trainings, and then we close out our closing procedures in May and June. Coaching is done through the artifacts that we have as part of the requirements, and they're just kind of like assignments. And there's discussions that we have, so there's continuous coaching throughout the year during the modeling sessions, and then through the requirements of the Reading Academies. And so our journey continues with Cohort 5 this year. Our new cohort will join educators from our very own district and across the state of Texas to have a deep understanding of the science of teaching reading. And I really want to point that our first training is this Wednesday and Thursday, so we meet at the Ramada Inn from 8 to 4. Teachers have an hour lunch during our trainings, and so it's a full day. We have many members in this very room that have attended, so I'm excited to share that we have our very first training this week. And so a special thank you goes out to you, our board members. Dr. Rios, our superintendent, Mrs. Gomez, our chief academic officer, our authorized provider, which is Region 15, our principals and assistant principals, our cohort participants, technology department, the Office of Curriculum and Instruction, and Ramada Inn of Del Rio, because together we are better and together we are unstoppable. So thank you very much for your time. And do you have any questions?
Board members? Yes, Ms. Webb?
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I just wanted to ask, since we have new administrators and new teachers from almost every campus, what are we going to do for them? Are we starting straight from the beginning with them? Where are we picking them up?
So the ones that qualify for the cohort this year, we have our group, and so some of those are first-year teachers. Some have come from other campuses maybe, or maybe outside entities like a charter school. So we have whoever's in our group now, that those are the teachers we have that are going to be part of the Reading Academies this year.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else?
Just want to say, is this open? It's like, can we go visit this on Wednesday?
Of course, yes, you can come on by. Anybody's welcome. I have extra booklets too.
No, just to observe.
Yes, y'all are more than welcome to join us Wednesday and Thursday.
Thank you.
HB3 was one of the best things that happened. For some time, I had been hounding Dr. Rios about, I would notice the teachers we were hiring, and a lot of them were emergency certification. And when I was serving as a principal, I noticed that it might be fine in secondary. Elementary, it's very difficult to teach reading, math. if they're not standard certified. So, and now, I mean, more than ever, we are having trouble finding applicants as it is for teaching. But the best thing that has happened so far is HB3. You know, this is my opinion because, again, they're going to get the best teacher to teach them reading, which is something that they will be using throughout their career and throughout all subject areas. So what better way than to do all these modules, because that's the proper way of teaching reading. And so I thank you. I think this was a very informative report, and we look forward to, again, having all the teachers go through all the modules. Dr. Rios?
Mr. President, just, I know that the teachers don't do it for the data, but we have to measure programs based on data. And as we are reviewing the goals that the campuses set last year, where we see the most progress is in the third grade students achieving meets and masters in reading. And particularly this year, well, I should say last year, this year we're reviewing the 22-23 data, but it's also that cohort that has had teachers that have gone through the reading academies for 3 years. So it definitely, don't know how I could isolate it through some research, but it isn't a coincidence that we made the biggest growth in meets and masters at the third grade with last year's cohort, and that's a third year that a student may have had 3 teachers who had gone through the cohort in kinder, first, and second. So excellent work, ma'am.
And thank you for coordinating the training at the Riverwalk and the Ramada Inn, because everyone going through this deserves, you know, a little time away from the classroom, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Thank you again for the report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, next a report that we have is item 8C, bilingual ESL program. Karen Schaefer.
Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and board members. Thank you for having me here present the update on bilingual ESL department projects that we've been ongoing through the 22-23 school year and how we hope to proceed. What I'm going to be talking to you today about is the district counts of the emergent bilingual students, or EBs, the history of the TELPUS modifications, the emergent bilingual exits from the program, and the TEA indicator progress from the 22 TELPUS results, and how the program is progressing towards the 23-24 school year. This slide is a 4-year emergent bilingual counts by grades per year. So if you look at each column, you can see that it starts with 2019 and 2020, then on to even by this last Friday. Those numbers on the current will change constantly, so that's not a current number, but 2019, 2020, all the way to 2022, 23, those are solid in the numbers that we had for those years. So it has a story behind how we've changed with a little history, of course, starting with COVID. In 2019-2020, for that school year, the TELPUS window was from February 17th through April 3rd of that year. However, in the middle of everything, on March 14th, y'all met here for a board meeting to say that the schools were shutting down, which meant that there was no longer the TELPUS test as we have known it. So what TEA said, we could no longer use the TELPUS, we could no longer use the STAR, and we could no longer use the Terra Nova, which were 3 items we needed for exiting students from the bilingual program. What TEA did say that we could use in lieu of the TELPUS was the Lost Links. This was an online test. It was voluntary by parents who would bring their students or their children to have to take the test. Testing was also extended into the fall of 2020, 2021. So it was just a very different TELPUS taking window after COVID and the closing of schools. For kindergarten, here are the scores that they had for the 4 years, from 2019, 2020, all the way to 2022, 23 last year. It goes by by campus. And these are the things that we need to be aware of for kinder. Kinder is holistically scored using a rubric by each of the teachers. They have to score an advanced high in listening, speaking, reading, writing, and the composite score. Kinder does not exit, however, it gives us a baseline of how we should monitor their progression throughout the years. So hopefully we can exit them pretty quick, knowing where they stand at kindergarten. Here's a 4-year campus exits with the criteria that's involved. So you can see that it follows the grade for elementary, 1 through 5th, and also the middle school and high schools. It tells you how many exits were in each year for that grade level, and the criteria. So for first grade, of course, it's also scored holistically. They have to score advanced high in the rating for proficiencies for listening, reading, speaking, writing, and the composite score. And they must also take the Iowa test and make sure that they have a 40% or better scoring in reading and language. So a few little barriers, but they have to do both of those things to make it an exit. For second grade, they take the TEA TELPUS, and they must score advanced high with the proficiencies in listening, speaking, reading, writing, and composite scores, and also take the Iowa test and make a 40% or better in reading and language arts. In grades 3rd through 12th, they take the TEA TELPUS, must also score advanced high in all of their proficiencies. They must pass their STAR reading or EOC and have no accommodations in order for them to exit. Also for 11th grade, they must take the TEA TELPUS, score advanced high in all of the proficiency levels, and also take the Iowa test, and they must pass with the 40% or more in reading and language arts, and also have no accommodations. Which brings us to our results-driven accountability. So there were some students in 2022, 2023, that were our indicator kids that we focused on with data, because we know that data helps us decide how we need to move forward and help those students move from one proficiency to the next. We had indicator number 8, and those affected students in grades 2nd through 12th in only the reading, and they had to have scored a beginning. However, the students were in that current year, for instance, our case, 2022. TELPUS rating in reading is at the beginning proficiency level, and they tested 2 years in a row. That's how they became an indicator, indicator 8. For indicator 9, there were 2 parts to that one. Those are the students that were in 5th through 12th grade, and it scored only the composite, looking at those. There's a part with the beginning in the composite scores, and then the composite scores for intermediate in those grades. For indicator 9 composite beginning, students were in U.S. schools for 5 or more years, and they took the TELPUS composite with a rating of beginning. For the indicator 9 composite intermediate, they also were students with 5 or more years in the program, and they took the TELPUS composite with a result in intermediate. So these were our results. We had, for that year, last year, 1,994 students that took the TELPUS. Of those students, 215 were indicator number 8. 115 with how we help them with pull-out groups, small groups, and working with our strategists. 115 progressed either 1 to 3 proficiency levels. And then 90 remained, plus the 10 who didn't test that reading section. So we just have to remind ourselves how they at least progressed. Well, the campus strategists met with them with at least 45 minutes a week, and they used a research-based phonics for reading book to help them. Students used Summit K-12 as well in the classroom or in the computer lab. Teachers gave instructional interventions during their instruction in the classroom, and then data was regularly monitored and collected. For indicator number 9, the composite beginning, even though the number is 6, remember a composite is 2 sections, but of the 6 that were indicator number 9 beginning, 2 progressed, 2 remained, and 2 did not test. But we did make sure that they used Summit K-12 in the classroom or computer lab, and the campus strategists monitored weekly usage with logins and minutes. And then also the teachers gave instructional interventions through their instruction. Indicator 9 for the composite intermediate, again from the testers from TELPUS, 214 were of intermediate, indicator 9, 78 progressed 1 or 2 levels, and 129 plus the 7 non-testers remain at that intermediate. That was students used Summit K-12 in the classroom and computer lab, and the campus strategists also monitored weekly usage with teacher interventions. So moving forward, because data drives everything, we have to look at what the data tells us. We know that small groups are very important because then they can isolate those students and work one-to-one. In some cases, in most cases, no more than 8. It was really a nice schedule for each of the strategists. And we also thought that teachers need to become more empowered with strategies in the classroom. So we have Region 15 coming into our district, and where they're going to provide either Zoom or in-person trainings for strategists. And the training will include things such as TELPUS information, differentiated instruction, classroom instructional strategies, and the ELPs, which are very important, all of those for instruction in language learning. The strategists will also continue to meet in small groups with using the Phonics for Reading, the research-based book, train teachers after school from 3 to 4 o'clock, which is during their contract time. So we're eliminating them working during planning or even conference time, because after school is when there are no students, and the strategists remain working with students throughout the whole day. They provide teacher support with instruction after the training, and they continue monitoring Lexia and Summit K-12 usage. We have 2 new schools now, well not new, but with Cenizo Hills, our new school, and Buena Vista. We have our curriculum coordinator, Nancy De La Rosa, who will be also doing the Lexia Summit enrollment of students. She will provide Region 15 training for Cenizo Hills and Buena Vista. She'll create supporting materials for bilingual aids, all campuses. We started this year, something new. We're investing in our teacher aids with what we call the curriculum toolbox. Inside of it, we have an alphabet arc. We have articulation cards and mirrors. We have Making Words, which is a program for just using those words to make, tiles to make words. And then we have the RLA adoption materials for EBs, where they can use flashcards, whatever they're using in instruction, they have those materials available if the teacher chooses to use them in small groups. And then we're promoting listening, speaking, reading, and writing with teachers and teachers' aides trainings, with conversations with academic language and its vocabulary, writing skills with prompts, and the use of Summit K-12 components, because there's many things within Summit K-12 that connect to content instruction. So the TELPUS goals for improving is for the TELPUS ultimately. These are only two examples of the listening and speaking, which they have to listen to something, and then they have to speak into the microphone. And that's where you'll see that universal microphone. They need that little thing. Well, it's because they need to speak clearly, which is one. But the other thing is they have to speak for 90 seconds straight, or they lose points. So that's something that needs to be trained, because usually in our texting world, we just want to make a short answer. But 90 seconds is quite a while to have something that's solid on prompt. That's the listening and speaking example. For reading and writing, they have a prompt, and you can see that in that example, they have a beginning missing and an ending. So students have to think of the beginning and the ending in this case, and they have to write, which in this view, it's really similar to the writing part of the STAR, which they also have to take 3rd through 12th. So we're trying to prepare them for that as well. Any questions?
Board members, questions? I'll ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
On the, I wish somehow we could provide an incentive for the campus that utilizes, we have utilization reports that come to us, but we don't really know how many students or they're enrolled as bilingual or ESL. We have Lexia and K-12, and I'm sure we have other software, but do you monitor the usage reports as far as?
For other items, I'm sorry, Mr. Mesa.
For the computer lab? or
For the
classroom?
computer lab, we just monitor Lexia for K and 1, and for Summit K-12, that's a weekly monitoring piece. Actually, for both, we do monitor the usage of minutes and logins as well.
Because it's very easy to just say, we're not going to do it today, we're not going to go to the computer lab or whatever, but we spend quite a bit of money from the budget.
Oh, definitely. And so the monitoring also helps us know if it's a good product, which we can see that it is, and there's more components in it, so that's why we're taking those components out, so we can collaborate with the writing and everything else that it encompasses. So there's more to it than just just getting onto the computer. So we're doing as much as we can from Summit K-12 to pull out into the classroom.
And if a board member wanted to see the strategists at 3 to 4 o'clock training for teachers, would it be possible to just briefly go in and out?
Oh, definitely, of course. We can provide a schedule so you know when they are training.
If anyone is interested, I'm just asking, But again, if no further questions, I thank you very much for the report.
Thank you.
Next item we have is item 8D, Innovative Academies. Dr. Sandy Garza.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. I'm here to provide a brief update on the academies from the Office of Innovation. The last time that I was here providing an update, we were in the middle of our design phase. We were recruiting students, recruiting teachers, training teachers, and all the many tasks that happened over the summer. So we're back, and we have already started the implementation phase. On this first slide, you can see some of our kindergarten STEM students being introduced to what they later named Chuck E. Cheese, their first robot in the classroom, and so that is helping them learn how to code. This classroom is at RBB. Our learning environments, after the recruitment process for both students and teachers, we ended up at dual language academies with 43 students altogether at, of course, Lamar and Buena Vista, 2 teachers, 1 teacher at each campus, and a 22-to-1 average ratio. For our elementary STEM academies, and we are including kindergarten and first at Ceniza, Dr. Fermin Calderon, and RBB, for a total of 218 students, 10 teachers, and an average 22-to-1 ratio. At New Tech Middle School, we have a total of 91 students, 8 teachers, 2 per content area, with an average 23-to-1 ratio. And this picture also shows some of our local scholars. These students are in the Ceniza Hills STEM lab with their aprons and testing hypotheses. Some of the district supports that we have systemically put in place are, of course, taking some of the district-provided resources such as the planning protocol dashboard, making sure that our grade level and academy-specific documents are accessible by teachers. That required the creation of new tiles for STEM, all the content areas, dual language, etc. I do have one new staff member for my team, Ms. Gabriela Torrescano, who is my specialist, and she is on hand to provide any updates that need to happen almost in real time, very fast turnaround. As far as collaborative planning, the teachers that are involved in the academies do attend their grade level planning meetings weekly. And here, as the first 6 weeks has come to an end, there have been some sessions set up for them to plan with their academy counterparts. So that has gone really well. So we've been able to get, for example, all the kindergarten STEM teachers together from RBB, Dr. Fermin Calderon, and Ceniza to have some academy-wide planning sessions. We've also provided class materials. A lot of these have come as a result of their units of study. I know that they've already received some STEM supply carts, some Spanish resources, and we're in the process of getting some language supports for the dual language program. I know that there's a new list that's already developing for next 6 weeks from each of the academies as they start planning their next units of study. One of the things that we will start doing is we are committed to being very intentional as we start looking at the performance and monitoring the performance of all our academies. We've started training on things like walking in the door data and goal setting, so that we make sure that we understand the performance levels that our students are coming into the academy with, and that we do everything that we need to do, differentiate our activities, challenge our students, check the pulse of how they're doing, help them goal set to keep them in the same performance level or higher. And so we're starting those conversations. We've already started training teachers. I think we're ready to train the third batch of teachers on accountability aligned practices. Any questions?
Well, there's a lot of good things happening in our district. I'll turn it over to board members for questions.
Great job.
I'm so glad.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Orfeld.
Just a comment and a congratulations that I'm glad that we finally have rolled these things out. I know it was part of the, it's kind of been almost a 5-year plan getting to this point. And I'm glad that we've been able to bring these things into the elementaries. I know the Dual Language Academy has the low number on that one there. And as I explained to people, dual language here has a completely different meaning than it does in Houston or San Antonio and places like that. So I think there's, on that one, as we do better with it, I'm sure those numbers will begin to increase once they realize that it's not bilingual and,
Yes.
and stuff. So I'm glad that this is all going on and it's trickling down. It's no longer just at the high school and stuff like that. It's moving down. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ofeld. Anyone else? Yes, Dr. Rios.
I know that board members take the opportunity to visit campuses. I have visited the dual language program at Buena Vista, and I haven't been able to made it to Lamar, just haven't made it into the classrooms at Lamar, but if you all visit the campus and if you're at Buena Vista, I would just really encourage you to go see that dual language program. It's just real neat to see how the kids collaborate with each other and rely on each other a whole lot. It's just nice to see.
I would ask the board members if you could coordinate with Dr. Rios just to make sure that we don't all go at the same time. But I think wonderful things are happening, and as we continue having our parental conference that we hosted last year, for the parents to become aware that we have different programs and they can join the group as well. Thank you so much.
Yes, welcome.
Next item we have on our agenda is the consent agenda. Again, one action will approve all items on the consent. There were some minutes of special call board meetings that were at your desk. Also, there's some other purchases. If there's any questions regarding any items on the consent agenda that you would like to either ask or pull out any item, this is the time to do so. In the meantime, if our secretary could read the donations, we have a donation page on our
Yes, sir.
booklet.
Monetary donations from Lockhart Theater Arts Boosters to Del Rio High School Theater Arts in the amount of $366. Non-monetary donations from the Rotary Club Bank and Trust to Garfield Elementary, 1 pallet of school supplies valued at $425. From Del Rio Youth Basketball Association to Del Rio Middle School, dish basketball shooting machine valued at $5,490. From Deborah and Dwayne Hule to Buena Vista Elementary, writing paper and craft materials valued at $30. From Shortcuts Hair Salon to San Felipe Del Rio CISD, 6 haircuts valued at $150. Care Etc. to San Felipe Memorial Middle School, 20 backpacks valued at $450. Jer Berton to Buena Vista Elementary, 4 books valued at $10. The next 4 are to Dr. Fermin Calderon. The first one is from STAT Specialty Hospital Del Rio, 180 pencil pouches with supplies valued at $900. From Judith Olivares Trevino, 1 gift card valued at $100. And from the Del Rio Rotary, 1 pallet of school supplies valued at $475. And from Cadena Family Practice, 12 dinner or dining chairs valued at $357.15. The next one is from the Rotary Club and Bank and Trust to Ceniza Hills Elementary, 1 pallet of school supplies valued at $425. Thank you, Mr. Mesa.
Thank you. And as always, we want to thank the businesses and individuals for their donations and assisting us with the different programs throughout the school year. Thank you again for all the people that donated and businesses. At this time, I will ask if there's any questions regarding consent agenda. Dr. Rios, I do have one question in regard to item F3, which is the solar film on the windows. I could hardly see the date that they will be doing this, but it seems like a Saturday. Would that be correct?
Mr. Chapa has been coordinating with them because it is a lot of campuses. Really, it's all the campuses, but it's not just on a Saturday.
I saw something in our booklet, in our packet.
No, sir, it would be after hours and on weekends if possible.
Okay. Now, another question that I ask is this film that you can't see inside, but you can see from the inside out?
I don't think it has those properties. It's more of a safety features.
Okay.
If I may, it's not tint, it's film to prevent the glass from shattering.
Yes, I read some of the specifics of it, but I just wondered because there are some large windows that now they're building the new schools without those large windows for safety reasons. So there's nothing, they still can see inside.
Yes.
Okay. And is this the funds coming from the grant that we received, safety grant?
We're going to have an update in closed session just to share where we're at, and you'll be able to see that it's a combination of local funds and grant funds. Now, for this particular film, we are using local funds, but we are also in the process of applying for a grant that would hopefully reimburse the district for any expenses made into this film, so that then we can use those funds and reallocate them to continue with our fencing project.
Okay. It's a large amount, but this will encompass all schools.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. All right, I'll ask the question again. Is there any item that needs to be either pulled out or questions that you have on the consent agenda? Hearing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Motion from Mr. Ofeld, second from Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Okay, motion is approved. Consent agenda items are approved. We go on to administration. Item 10. First item we have is 10A, consideration to approve a resolution of the board to employ or accept volunteers as chaplains. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Beginning with the 2023-2024 school year, Senate Bill 763 allows school districts to employ chaplains or accept chaplains as volunteers for providing student support services and programs assigned by the board. The bill requires every school board to take a record vote by March the 1st, 2024 on whether to adopt a policy authorizing chaplains as employees or volunteers. The attached resolution of the board resolves that the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Board of Trustees affirms the practice of a district campus permitting a chaplain to provide support services as a volunteer for students as a volunteer in accordance with the district's existing GKG local policy. And at this time, I can entertain any questions.
Can I further explain, Mr.
Doug-
President?
Yeah, read that back to me again.
Doug-
Can I explain it first?
Dr. Rios?
Mr. Overfeld? So, we do employ people who work as chaplains in the community, but we do not have a chaplain program on campus, nor we substitute anybody who is labeled as a chaplain for a counselor position. But we will employ them and ask them as volunteers. They just have to meet the requirements stipulated in the job description, which chaplain will never be a requirement in the job description. But if somebody's a chaplain, I know some, and I also know some that work for the district, but that is not a requirement. And that's the resolution. Okay, now, ma'am, will you please read?
Yes, so the attached resolution resolves that the district will affirms the practice of the district campus permitting the chaplain to provide support services and programs for students as a volunteer in accordance with the district's existing policy, which is in GKG local. So the school district will not be employing chaplains. The school district would be, would allow them to come in as volunteers to provide support, services for students.
Can we give an example? So, for example, Mr. Seca has come and provided certain leadership opportunities, but we are very clear when they come and they visit with us that they are not to be biased or even promote any type of belief, whether it be Christianity or other in the presentation. We've also had, I don't want to point anybody out, but Coach McCrae sitting here, and he could be termed a chaplain. He works for our district, and he's done a whole lot of leadership groups, and he's never promoted Christianity. So that's what this resolution allows us to do.
Correct. And if I may, Dr. Rios, also to add, the concept was intended to be able to provide support services as counselors in the event we were to have a crisis that we would need additional counselors. And so this Senate bill allows school districts to either employ or to accept as volunteers chaplains in that capacity.
If I may also add, the more extreme version of the resolution would substitute a chaplain for a counselor. And that's not what we're doing at all. We are simply passing a resolution with the option of what we've already been doing.
I don't think we need a resolution for what we're already doing. The Senate bill was laid out to allow school districts to hire chaplains as counselor. That was the intent of the Senate bill, to go in and get around some stuff there, not require a degree, not require any education in counseling, doesn't even require a background check there. So that was the intent of the bill. This is a variation that somehow has come up, and no.
Yeah, so if I may, TASB provided the resolution with different options.
Correct.
To present to the board. They all meet, in their legal opinion, the intent of the legislative action, as long as we take a record vote. And I will add, Mr. Overfeld, not going to mention any names, but when I checked, when I shared this with the board members in an update, some of the feedback that I received from board members was that they wanted to make sure that we didn't hire counselors just because they were chaplains, but that we also were very careful in how we postured, I think that's the appropriate word, to let chaplains know that we still want to work with them in the situations that we've been working with them in the past. And I think that this resolution reflects that. Now,
going back to what you started with about we didn't want to send the message that we would not hire counselors as, what was?
No, that we
I didn't
weren't.
understand that.
In other words, if you're a chaplain, you're excluded from working with the district. We don't want to send that message. As long as you meet the requirements, you can work.
Okay.
Mr. Orfeld, my understanding of this bill is that the board has to take action, either to employ or either to accept volunteers. Is that correct, Sandra?
That is correct.
So we're saying that we're going to accept volunteers. I can see if there's a true emergency where there's something that happens, hopefully never happens, but if there is some tragic event that we do need some more individuals to come and provide some assistance for our students, they would be accepted as volunteers with the stipulation, again, that they will not be instilling any religion or but support for students if it's a tragic event of some sort. Correct?
That is the intent, and the intent is just solely for the district to make a decision whether they would want to employ a chaplain or to consider having a chaplain come in as a volunteer under these circumstances.
Does anyone else have a question?
So basically what we're saying is,
Sorry.
so basically what we're saying is we want to take them as volunteers. And we're just trying to follow the law that states that we have to adopt it, a record vote no later than 6 months after.
Mhm.
We already do this right now.
Right, the Texas legislature requires us to take a record vote.
Okay.
So long as we do that between now and March the 1st of 2024.
Yes.
And we are following the Texas Education Code, Chapter 23, that requires the board to take a record vote.
Which I'm just trying to confirm, basically, we already do this right now. Everybody that we take in as a chaplain, they're on a volunteer basis.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
100%.
that's all I just wanted to know.
So I'm a little confused. If we're doing that now, we still have to vote as to whether it's a continuation, and is this just for emergency, or if there's any crisis, or is it on a daily basis?
Because there was a legislative bill that came.
Yes.
And that's the result of it.
Okay.
Josh, do you still have a question? It's your fault.
I do not believe that that's what, I don't believe that what we're getting ready to vote on is what the bill intended, based on everything that I researched and followed during the legislative session there, so. But I mean, we can take the vote, it's fine, it's fine.
Okay.
I just have questions, or not questions, I have doubts, sorry.
Okay. If there's any other question, will you read the recommendation, please?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution and resolve that the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Board of Trustees affirms the practice of a district campus permitting a chaplain to provide support, services, and programs for students as a volunteer in accordance with the district's existing GKG local policy.
Heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Amy Haynes. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Mrs. Gonzalez. All those in favor?
The record.
It's a record vote.
Record vote. Okay, we'll start. Mr. Alindo?
Or,
Yes. Amy?
Four.
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 Mrs. Webb? Yes. Myself? Yes. Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Orfeld?
No.
No. And Becky Chavez?
I'm undecided, really. Can I abstain from this?
You can abstain.
Yes, I'll
Okay,
abstain.
one abstention, one nay vote, and 5 affirmative. Resolution is approved.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Item 10B, consideration to approve the submission of an application to the Texas Education Agency, TA, for low attendance waiver day. Michelle Smith.
Good evening, President Meza, Dr. Rios, members of the board. In accordance with the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, Section 3.8.1.4, low attendance day waivers, a school district may apply for a low attendance day waiver for a day in which school was held, but attendance was at least 10 percentage points below the overall average attendance rate for the district for the prior year due to weather-related health or safety issues. On August 24th, 2023, the district received reports from parents of a social media posting posing an active threat to students at Del Rio Middle School.
While the threat was not believed to be credible, law enforcement was notified. Due to the social media posting, a great number of students throughout the district did not attend classes Friday, August 25th, 2023. As a result, the calculated attendance rate was 80.83%, which is more than 10 percentage points below the overall 2022-2023 average attendance rate of 91.36. Administration is requesting permission to apply for the district-wide low attendance day waiver for Friday, August 25th, 2023.
Any questions from board members? I guess my only question to you is there, or Dr. Rios, is there a limit as to how many waivers we can apply?
Sir, the total is 4,200 minutes throughout the year. So some of that would be staff development, but since we're not doing staff development.
But I'm saying waiver days.
No, sir, there's no limit to the waiver days we can apply.
No limits, okay. Okay. Sorry. Any questions from board members?
I do.
Mr. Overfeld?
So because of the actions of this juvenile, we had parents who were rightfully worried to send their kids to school, and this has become endemic since May 24th because of Robb Elementary and stuff happening across Texas and the United States. So my question is, for these different incidents, this one, the other ones that we've gone in and experienced, where individuals have been arrested, there, are we with our district police, our city police, sheriff's department, whoever the arresting agency is, are we working with either Judge Gonzalez, who handles all the minor juvenile cases, or and the DA, and also the DA and either Judge Cadena or Judge Andrade on ensuring that these are going to come to trial, and it's not just going to die because of lack of paperwork or whatever it might go in and be, and because I believe that the community needs to see that the more you mess around, the more you're going to find out when it comes to this stuff, and there will be consequences. And there, I want to ensure that we are filing everything as a district that we can, and working with the district attorney to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law these individuals who choose to disrupt the education system in Del Rio.
Yes, sir, absolutely. We are working directly with the DA to make sure that all the paperwork is appropriately submitted. Now, whether the charges at the end of the day meet the elements of a terroristic threat, that is unfortunately not up to the district's authorities, but to the district attorney. But we do collaborate with them on step-by-step to make sure that it isn't for lack of paperwork or lack of interest, that it goes all the way through.
I just want to make sure that what we're doing today is just simply submitting a waiver to TA, but I think we can get a report because there were numerous. As the year started, you know, we started with one, it's ballooned to 4 or 5, but I would like to get a report individually, yeah, whether it be an executive or outside of executive in regard to where we are with the culprits that do this. But this is a waiver, so I just was questioning how many we can do because we don't want it to continue, but at the same time, we do want to work with our law enforcement. And I'm glad that local PD has produced a video, and there'll be others produced by different agencies to make sure that, and then students are also getting the information in regard to consequences when this happens. So anyway, would you read the recommendation?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves the submission of the application to TEA for the district-wide low attendance day waiver.
Okay, you heard the recommendation from administration. I will entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 10C, consideration to approve the interlocal agreement between San Felipe del Oro CISD and Val Verde Regional Medical Center to approve the purchase order over $25,000 in the amount of $78,777.60. Idea Garcia.
Yes, good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Since 2016, the district has entered into a partnership with Val Verde Regional Medical Center through an interlocal agreement to provide ambulance membership service to the residents of Val Verde County, and we would like to continue this partnership again for this coming year.
Dr. Rios, I had several questions in regard to this, but I know on the update, you gave us information, the previous update, regarding what I had asked you. So the county pays for the county residents?
Yes, Mr. Mesa. Other districts, other communities have a program where the county pays just for their employees. The city may pay just for their employees, but they don't have a community-wide program. The option that was presented to us a few years ago was that if the county paid a share and the city paid a share and the school district paid a share, then anybody who was a resident of Val Verde County would be covered under this community program. That's the difference in Del Rio versus, let's say, Eagle Pass, for example. Eagle Pass, unless you're employed by the county, if you have to be airlifted out, you're not covered under that community plan. Here in Del Rio, you don't have to work for any one of the entities. You just have to be a resident of the county and be flown out on one of their helicopters, as long as it's available. And a few years ago, the same question came up, and they were able to produce a list of events that were covered.
So the only clause is that if it's not available and they use somebody else's, we're not covered.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or if the accident happens outside the county and they fly you out of, let's just say that an incident happens right outside of the county line, Val Verde, on that side in Dimmitt County. Well, that's not happening in the county. They had to fly you from the highway.
What's the name of this air ambulance?
Ms. Gonzalez?
I'm sorry,
No.
Mr. President.
Yes.
May I speak?
Yes.
What is the name of the ambulance? Because I know some people that they live in the county, it happened in the county, they got a bill anyway. So it depends on the ambulance, it was the air ambulance.
It's the air evac.
What is the name of it, miss?
It's the air evac.
And also, I pay for my husband and me to have this too, but I pay $35 a month, so it must not be the same ambulance.
No, ma'am.
$35 a year, excuse me.
I'd have to look at it, but they have a policy on top of a policy where then you would be covered even if the accident didn't happen within the county.
Yeah, 'cause
So
there's
that's what they sell. They sell in addition to an upgrade to this policy. And that's probably what you have,
I got
$35 sounds
AirMed, I
familiar.
think it's called AirMed.
Yes.
And this one only flies you to San
$35
Antonio.
a year, right? You get the same thing, yeah. That's like I'm confused.
Okay.
Because I
Ms.
figured it
Mess-
was only the.
I was just gonna.
Ms. Jones, yes.
Yes, I was just gonna add to Diane's, as far as paying, I also pay AirMed for yearly for something like that, but should I drop it and then?
That's what I'm
No,
wondering.
it's a matter of protection in case you're outside.
I know,
Yes.
I know.
Like I
know.
mentioned, because this one also only takes you to San Antonio. So if they were to fly you to Houston or any other area,
Yes,
then it would.
I understand. It was just a little idea that came to
Yes.
mind.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what, yeah,
Okay.
people have been charged even though they're county residents.
Any other questions?
Long ambulance.
If not,
Okay.
recommendation,
Yes, sir.
please.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the interlocal agreement between San Felipe Del Rio CISD and Valverde Regional Medical Center, and for Dr. Rio, Superintendent of Schools, to sign the interlocal agreement and approve the purchase order in the amount of $78,777.60 as presented.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Becky Chavez, seconded by Mr. Overfeld. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3. One abstention. Okay, 6 in favor, 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Okay, we go on to item 10, 11, I'm sorry, 10D, consideration to approve the appointment of Val Verde County Appraisal District Board of Directors for the 2024-2025 term. Sandra Edmonds.
Good evening once again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. In accordance with the Texas Tax Code 6.03A and CCH Legal, appraisal districts are governed by a board of directors. San Felipe Del Rio CISD appoints 4 directors on the Val Verde County Appraisal District Board of Directors. Currently, Dr. Leonel Chavez, Mr. Rene Garza, Mr. Ramiro Guzman, and Mr. Christopher Kishman serve on this board. Their term is set to expire December 31st, 2023. There are no term limits for serving on the Val Verde County District Board of Directors. San Felipe Del Rio CISD has the flexibility of reappointing the current representatives or choosing new candidates. Each of the current directors have accepted their candidacy for the 2024-2025 term.
Questions from board members? And they've done a great job too as well. Okay, no questions from board, so recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of the Board of Trustees to reappoint Dr. Leonel Chavez, Mr. Rene Garza, Mr. Ramiro Guzman, and Mr. Christopher Kishman, and to serve on the Val Verde County Appraisal District Board of Directors, representing San Felipe Del Rio CISD.
Heard the recommendation. There's a motion from Mr. Galindo. Is there a second? Amy Haynes seconded the motion. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We go on to technology and operations, item 12A, consideration to authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract for the purchase of electricity for all of the district's facilities. Hector Chapa.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, board members. The current rate became effective beginning of 2023 with the current provider at a little bit over 7 cents. Currently, the newest prices available are slightly over 5 cents. So there's an opportunity for cost savings opportunity to the district at this point in time. The current contract is valid through the end of 2026. However, if we were to act now, we would lock in the lower prices when the contract becomes eligible. So at this point in time, administration is requesting the board approval to allow Dr. Rios to negotiate a contract under the current prices.
Okay, I had asked Dr. Rios, TASB has an energy co-op, so I'm sure that we're getting the best as far as the cost for wattage. Is that, have you compared it to the energy co-op, Dr. Rios?
Mr. Mesa, before Mr. Carrera departed the district, he did a comparison with different vendors and including TASB, and he reported that this was the best value to the district.
Okay. And my understanding from you is that we secure a 1 year instead of a 2 year?
No, we secured a 2 year instead of a 5 year.
Correct. 2 instead of 5.
Currently, we have a 3 year, and there's options anywhere from 1 year up to 7 years. And price ranges differ based on the length of the contract.
Okay.
However, we're looking at a 2 year contract.
As long as we're saving money somewhere, I mean, I appreciate the fact that you keep up with that. If it's going from 7 to 5, by all means. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. Is the recommendation of administration, the Board of Trustees approve the superintendent to negotiate and sign a contract with an approved commercial electricity service provider that offers the best value for the district and for the purchase of electricity for all the district facilities.
Heard the recommendation, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Mr. Galindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, sir. Item 14, Human Resources. Item A, consideration to approve a food service worker / driver position for food service department. Ede Garcia.
Yes, sir. Good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. We have a position that is being requested by the Food Service Department. This is a position for a food service worker driver. Currently, the warehouse staff is providing the meals to the satellite campuses, so that's becoming complex, so they need that extra support. So we're recommending for this position.
Any question from the board? Hearing none, the recommendation.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the additional food service worker driver position for the Food Service Department as presented.
Heard the recommendation from the board. Is there a motion for approval? Mrs. Webb make the motion, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 14B, consideration to approve the submission of the 2023-2024 request for maximum class size waiver exceptions to TEA. Ede Garcia.
Yes, sir. Every year we submit a survey to look at the class size enrollments for all classes from pre-K to 4th grade and make sure that they're not over the 22-to-1 ratio. If they are, we have to submit a plan to TEA and request for those waivers. As we reviewed the enrollment count, we have found 11 classrooms that are over the 22-to-1 ratio. And this is, last year we also had 11 classes that were over the maximum class size waiver. A copy of the classes are there in your desk. Any questions on those?
Board members? Hearing none. Recommendation, please.
It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the 2023-2024 request for maximum class size waiver exception to TEA and the compliance plan as presented.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Becky Chavez. All those in favor? Okay, motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. We go on to item 14C, consideration or discussion possible action to approve employee job description and evaluation forms. Ede Garcia.
With the creation of the new position for food service for driver and worker, in this packet you'll see the job description and evaluation form. We also are requesting a minor change to the principal job description, and this includes the change from 3+ years of successful experience as an assistant principal or district leader. That's the only change. Any questions on those two job descriptions?
Any questions?
I do.
Mr. Galindo?
What qualifies as a district leader?
I'll answer that. Mr. Alindo, here in the last couple of years, we've relied on deans of instruction.
Okay.
And for the most part, they work with teachers. So for example, we have 2 deans of instruction at Del Rio Middle School. And should they get their principal certification, that work would qualify them as relevant district leadership experience, because for all intents and purposes, they're an assistant principal dealing specifically with curriculum.
Okay. So does this help broaden the search if we're looking for principals by adding this, or does this?
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry,
Becky?
could, Dr. Rios, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear over here on
The
my
question.
side. What your answer was to
Yeah.
Mr. Galindo?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Galindo asked what would qualify as district leadership experience. And in this case, we were specifically thinking about individuals who may work as deans of instruction. For all intents and purposes, they are part of the campus leadership team, just like the assistant principals are. But unless we specify district leadership experience, that would exclude them from being able to apply for a principal's job should it come open. And that's specifically who we were talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hearing no other questions, recommendation?
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submission. Oops, sorry, I was reading the wrong one. Let me go back to the job descriptions. It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the employee job description and evaluation forms as discussed.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Galindo. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Mr. Orfeld. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We go on to item D, consideration to approve the updated 2023-2024 district compensation plans. Ida Garcia.
Yes, sir. I noticed that the compensation plan is not listed in the board package, so Ms. Villarreal is going to hand that to you. So I'll give you time to look at it as I go over it. There's very few changes. The first change is for our auxiliary pay plan, and the only addition that we're adding to this pay plan is the new position that we created today and that you accepted, which is the food service driver worker. And that is listed under pay grade 3, just like the warehouse workers. The next one is the 2023-2024 stipends. We would like to create a lead counselor stipend for elementary and one for secondary. And the stipend for that would be $1,970. Then finally, the last one, which is part-time temporary pay. These are really not new, but they're corrections. So for curriculum instruction project stipend, the word per project was left off when we first brought it in July. So we're adding 1 to 3 day project, that's $150 per project. And a 4 to 5 day project, it's $200 per project. Also, if you look at the bottom under miscellaneous per hour, this item was also not listed, and it was in the previous pay plan, which is SLP Proctor for $85 an hour. Any questions on those items?
Any questions from board members? Have we had lead counselors before in the past?
We have a lead counselor at the high school, but they really don't get a stipend for being a lead counselor. The only thing that they get is more days. Now, all the counselors in secondary, they get a stipend of $2,200, but we do not have a lead counselor stipend, and in elementary, we don't.
And is there a reason for that? Dr. Rios?
Mr. Ressa, so specifically, the lead counseling position, we wanted to be able to organize ways to more adequately communicate and facilitate meetings with counselors. So in fact, there would be one lead counselor for all of the elementary campuses, and there would be one lead counselor for the secondary campuses. This stipend mirrors the stipend of a department head at the high school. The high school would continue to have their campus lead counselor, but that duty would not be the same as the secondary lead counselor. As far as their salaries and what they pay, TASB studied the salaries of the elementary counselors and the high school counselors, and those were previously addressed when we moved them into the administrative pay scale. So this is not about a campus lead counselor, it's about district-wide lead counselor.
And my other question is SLP Proctor. What is that?
That's your speech language pathology project, Proctor, which we have, when we have students that are going through the SLP program, they need to be proctored. This is through Region 15. So this individual has to sit, I believe it's 2 hours. Ms. Luna, how many hours? Per week? 6 to 8 hours a week that they sit with a student,
Okay.
which is a teacher. Well,
So this is
speech
$85
language
an hour.
pathologist assistant, yes, sir. And again, this was listed on the previous compensation pay plan for last year, but for some reason it was left off. So we wanted to make sure to include it, since we do have a speech language pathologist assistant.
Okay.
Mr. Mesa.
Question, Mrs. Webb?
Yes. I know I used to be a lead counselor for the district, both elementary and secondary. So in having the two, one for elementary and one secondary, will these counselors ever come together as a unit? Because there might be issues at an elementary campus that secondary needs to be aware of as well. So if you separate them, when do they come together as a team? Because I also provided training for all of the counselors during that time. So if they're gonna provide different trainings, one for elementary and then one for secondary, will there be a job description that specifically indicates what it is that they're going? I guess that's for Dr. Rios to answer.
The person that supervises the counselors will continue to have meetings with them as a joint group. But there are elementary projects and there are secondary projects, whether it be working with Del Rio Cares or whether it just be other administrative things that fall under the counselor experience. And so obviously part of this is trying to eliminate counselors from doing some admin work, but rather have one counselor be paid a stipend to handle that. If y'all will recall, I believe it was last year we passed, or we changed the job description to say that the counselors would do no more than, I believe it was 5% or 10% admin work. Do you recall that, Ms. Gomez? I think you were part of that. It was a very small
I want to
percentage.
say, yeah, like 15.
So this is just one person that would assist in that, but the cabinet member that's in charge of the counseling program district-wide would continue to meet with everybody as a whole.
Anyone else? If not, could you read the recommendation, please?
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the updated 2023-2024 district compensation plan as presented.
Heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Ms. Gonzalez. Is there a second? Ms. Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, the time is 7:55 p.m. We're going to go into closed session pursuant to policy 551.074 and 551.071 of the Texas Education Code. We are now in closed session. If an action item is going to be presented, it will be taken upon reconvening into open session. We are now in closed session. Okay, the time is 10:12 p.m. We're reconvening into open session. No action was taken in executive. We're down to item 18A, consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations. Ida Garcia.
Yes, good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resignations and vacancies as presented in closed session.
You've heard the recommendation. I'm gonna read, do we need to read? I don't need to read the individuals again. Okay, there's a motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Ms. Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Item B, consideration to approve the position of ARD facilitator for the Special Education Department. Ida Garcia.
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Ms. Amanda Padilla as art facilitator for the Special Education Department as discussed in closed session.
Heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mrs. Webb, seconded by Becky Chavez. All those in favor? Motion is approved unanimously. Item C, consideration to approve the position of coordinator, custodial for the maintenance department. Ade Garcia.
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Mr. Eddie Solis as the custodial coordinator for the maintenance department as discussed in closed session.
You've heard the recommendation. Motion made by Mr. Galindo, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 18D, consideration to approve the position of coordinator, teacher incentive allotment, and talent development for the human resources development. Ida Garcia.
It is a recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Giovanna Cardenas for the position of TIA Coordinator and Talent Development for the HR Department as discussed in closed session.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Becky Chavez, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 18E, consideration to approve the position of registered nurse for the athletic department. Ida Garcia.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Itzayan Castillo for the position of registered nurse for the athletic department as discussed in closed session.
Heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mrs. Webb, seconded by Mr. Overfelt. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 18F, consideration to approve the position of 21st Century Grant Program Site Coordinator for Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary. Ida Garcia.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Erica Moreno for the position of 21st Century Grant Program Site Coordinator for Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary as discussed in closed session.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Alino made the motion, seconded by Amy Haynes. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 18G, consideration to approve the position of speech language pathologist for the special ed department. Ida Garcia.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Ms. Deborah Cantu as speech language pathologist for the special ed department as discussed in closed session.
I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Mr. Overfelt, seconded by Mr. Alindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item 18H, consideration to approve the position of speech language pathologist assistant for the special ed department. Ida Garcia.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve Ariana Solorio for the position of speech language pathologist assistant for the special ed department as discussed in closed session.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Becky Chavez made the motion. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Alindo? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 18I, consideration to approve a resolution of the board in compliance with House Bill 3, Armed Security Officer Requirements. Sandra Hernandez.
Yes, sir. Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution of the board in compliance with House Bill 3, Armed Security Officer Requirement, as discussed in closed session.
Heard the recommendation. Motion made by Ms. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Alindo. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. And I want to remind the board that we do have to sign each individual signature for the resolutions. There being no other items on the agenda, is there a motion for adjournment? Motion made by Amy Haynes, seconded by Mr. Alindo. All those in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned, and good night, everyone.